a small town in the province of Varese, where the city eerily feels like the remnants of what was once a charming little town. But I see past the shitty graffiti coating the pastel pink colored walls. To me, it's home. I'm no stranger to the sprawling city. I've already been here more times than I can count. I was 2 months old the first time we made the transatlantic trek to visit my dad's family. I even lived here for a little while before disaster struck, but today feels like the very first time. It's like I'm seeing this place through brand new eyes, and after the mess that went down last time, this is a fresh start, a chance to wipe the slate clean and try again. It's early September and the humidity hangs heavy in the air, clinging to my skin like a sweet, sticky veil. As soon as I step outside, I'm hit by a wave of commotion that overwhelms each of my senses. Everyone talks so loud and they're not polite at all, whether they're greeting each other or telling each other to get the fuck out of the way. They make sure to cause a scene. I wave at the strange people passing by and they stare back at me with confusion and alarm. "Do I know you?" one woman demands. My dad yanks me away and tells me to stop doing that. This is going to be a tough habit to break. I can't imagine walking past someone without acknowledging them. Not to mention, it's rude, but I don't say this out loud. I keep my observations to myself. I just nod, trying my best to absorb any little bit of information to make this transition easier for him. My dad summons a yellow taxi cab with the wave of his hand, as if he were a magician. He tosses my little red suitcase stuffed with my most precious possessions into the trunk, and I climb onto the tan leather seats that are cracked and reek of cigarette smoke. My dad tells him the address, and the driver, sporting a turban and aviator glasses, lets out a thick cloud of smoke. $50. $50. My dad shakes his head. As we sit in silence, crossing the boroughs on our way to Manhattan, I immediately notice how all the billboards advertising movies depict guns and violence. And strangely, there's no naked women. In Italy, it's perfectly normal to glance up at a billboard and have a big pair of bronzed, oily tits successfully sell you sunscreen at 8 a.m. on a January morning. Oh my goodness. Everything is so colossal here. The towering buildings cast shadows that stretch as far as my wide eyes can see, while the people who look nothing alike bustle around as if part of some grand dance. I am a provincial girl from a small town where everything seems miniature in comparison. I feel miniature too, but not in an insignificant way. I feel small in a way that feels exciting, like I have yet to be discovered. My dad aggressively thumbs his beeper, mumbling under his breath while I roll down the window and stick my head all the way out. I take a deep inhale as the warm, jagged air smacks me in the face, instantly recognizing the unique blend of roasted peanuts, molten concrete, and car exhaust that triggers my memory. I know this smell. Before I can immerse myself in the familiar scent, I'm interrupted by my dad pulling me back in by the back of my collar. I don't like how he's always yanking me around. The ride feels forever long as the car crawls through the gridlocked rush hour streets. I squirm in the back seat, fidgeting with my bracelets, the gold nameplate that reads Julia, that was placed on my wrist at birth. The countless lanes and vast sea of cars overwhelm me. Too many ways to go. I think the thought of getting lost in this concrete maze sends shivers mustache emerges, eager to assist my dad with the suitcases. Javier, this is my daughter Julia. She's going to be staying here for a while. Javier sticks his hand out and says, Hola, Julia. I giggle. I've never heard my name pronounced like that before. Before I forget, this is your address now if you ever get lost. My dad points to the green street sign on the corner. Before I can read them, he's already disappeared inside the building. I can tell my dad isn't used to having kids around because I'm constantly jogging behind him to keep up. Once inside, he calls the elevator, and after a few seconds of waiting, he gets impatient and leads me up the surface stairs. I trail behind him. Down the long, windy corridor all the way to apartment 2F without unlocking the door first. He swings it open and shouts, We're home. I'm shocked and ask him, You don't lock the doors. He shrugs and replies, We've got nothing of value in here. What about me? I think to myself. In Italy, Grandpa locked and bolted every orifice of our little apartment at sundown, and we certainly didn't have anything of value in that apartment either. I don't fully trust him, but I'm left with no other options. I accept his answer and immediately shift my attention to my brand new home. The room is covered in sheets of plastic shielding the furniture from paint splatter, and the smell of paint is overpowering, but the sunlight streaming in from the window floods the room with warmth. My dad takes me on a grand tour of the place, beaming with pride. It's not very big, but it feels massive to me. I've never lived anywhere that had a hallway before. Once we get to the end of the corridor, he announces, I saved the best for last, your very own bedroom. He pushes the door open, and there, perched atop a ladder, is a man in a beret, nonchalantly painting clouds on the ceiling. My eyes widen, and a flush spreads across my cheeks. This is too good to be true. I've never seen anything more exquisite in my life, but mostly, I'm overjoyed to finally have a room of my own like the kids on TV. I never had the luxury of solitude at my grandpa's. In fact, I was never alone. We were quite literally on top of each other, crammed into the same small one-bedroom apartment my mom grew up in. My brother and I shared the living room with my grandpa, and if our mom was home, my brother would sleep on the pull-out couch in her room with her. She was rarely home before bedtime, though. When this clock struck midnight, she still hadn't returned, I'd frantically dial her cell number on the old rotary phone until she picked up, just to hear her voice and make sure she was alive. The passing headlights outside only added to my restlessness as I watched each car pass by, desperately hoping to see hers. She worked as a nurse and was studying to become a psychologist. With no money, 2 little kids, and a certifiably insane baby daddy 1,000 miles away, so I can't blame her for her late nights. The nights we spent at home with Grandpa were always a blast. He would make us cepoline with eggs and sugar and put Lucio Battisti's music. I'd make him record me dancing on his old camcorder as I choreographed my own dance routines. He adored old Western movies, and I'd always have to wait until he was snoring and then I'd change the channel to sneakily watch the trashy late-night game shows. As cramped as it was living with Grandpa, at least it was safe. The last time I was in New York, we were homeless. How it happened is hazy, but I vividly to be blood on the floor by the entrance. Without a word, my dad swiftly scooped me up and we rode away on his bicycle, never to return, and we never spoke of it again. After that, we began sleeping at my dad's job sites. One of them was a beautiful townhouse on the Upper West Side with an arched doorway and a fireplace. It was Christmas time, and while the family who owned the place was away on vacation, they hired my dad to do partial renovations. Little did they know, my dad moved us all in on the first day of the job. Things were running smoothly at first. My parents even cuddled on the couch by the fire in the evenings as the snow piled on outside. I didn't care that it wasn't technically our house. It was so fun playing pretend, and I was just grateful we were finally under the same roof. But soon, Mom's mood turned, as it always did, I guess. Living someone else's life and shuttling all our belongings from place to place wasn't what she considered to be her American dream. With no other option, we moved onto the 20-foot sailboat docked on the 79th Street Marina that my dad had bought for $1,000 when he was 18 years old. Unfortunately, it was the middle of winter and there was no heating or proper plumbing on the boat, and the arguing between my parents was getting progressively worse day by day. The tension was thick and suffocating, making it impossible to escape. Explosive outbursts that sprawled violent rages were a frequent occurrence, with objects hurled at my dad shattering and ricocheting dangerously close to us. My brother was too young to comprehend the reason behind these outbursts, but I knew that our dad had taken our passports and had hidden them from her. She tore apart every inch of the boat, searching for them until she collapsed in tears, sobbing uncontrollably. In a fit of rage, she finally swatted a cup of water off the table that my brother had offered her. In a naive attempt to make her feel better, water splashed everywhere, dousing my brother and me. I rushed over to comfort her, but she swatted me away like a mosquito. Just give me mine then. Keep there, she pleaded through the tears. She had reached her breaking point. She didn't want to do this anymore. She had higher expectations for her life. The daughter of a hairdresser and a mechanic, she was the first in her family to go to college. She'd done everything right, yet she was poor, homeless, with 2 little kids in a foreign city. She unleashed her frustration by hurling insults at him. She called him a loser, a failure, a broke bum, but he wouldn't budge. He wanted to have his family geographically close to him. It probably didn't help that the last time he visited us in Italy, we barely looked up from our game when he walked through the door, or that my brother would call any tall man with glasses Papa. At 4 years old, I darted back and forth between my parents, coaxing my mom not to cry and pleading with my dad to give me the passports. Finally, he told me where they were, and I promptly told my mom. I felt it was my duty to make her stop crying. She was starting to scare my brother, who had begun sobbing uncontrollably. I blinked and we were suddenly back at Grandpa's house. Grandpa says he is both our mom and our dad, but he's so much more than that. We rely on his small pension to make ends meet. Although we aren't rich, the refrigerator is stocked with the delicious foods, and he spoils us with ice cream, candy, and soda. When we run out of candy, I eat spoonfuls of powdered chocolate Nesquik, and when that runs out, I turn to the cough syrup in the medicine cabinet. I am a regular at the emergency room, and all the doctors know me by name. I enjoy going to the hospital. I especially love getting shots, often asking the doctors for more. The nurses joke among themselves that they've never seen anything like it, distinct smell of cleanliness that I find oddly comforting. I love wandering around and snooping on the other patients, but mostly I love the warm, calming sensation of knowing that I'm going to be taken care of. Grandpa often comments on my parents' lazy parenting skills, and it's hard to argue with him. I can count on one hand the number of times that my mom took us to the movies or to the playground. The last time she sat on a bench with her friend chatting and smoking cigarettes as I rode around her in circles on my tricycle. I patiently waited until she had smoked it down to the filter and innocently asked if I could step on the butt. She paused, and to my surprise, she handed me a still lit cigarette. Instead of throwing it on the ground, I put it in my mouth and pedaled away as fast as I could on my little pink bike. When I turned around, she was curled over laughing uncontrollably while her friends looked on in horror. We didn't have a lot of money, so if I wanted something, I knew the only way to get it was by taking it. Once my mom caught me red-handed. After a trip to the supermarket, I climbed into the back seat and began discreetly pulling all my new acquisitions out of my pants. Among them was a jumbo pack of Bazooka bubblegum. Just as I was about to pop another piece of the yummy pink bubblegum into my mouth, she spun around and caught me in the act. I braced for impact, but to my surprise, she asked me for a piece of gum, turned on the radio, and drove home. My mom never had us baptized, which is a sin in itself in a place like Italy. I was furious that she didn't care if we went to hell or not. When the local nuns and priests would stop by for their monthly visits, Grandpa would swear up and down that we had been baptized. I remember them nodding suspiciously while examining the room in search of any photographs of my christening. In Italy, those kinds of pictures are everywhere in the house. The refrigerator, the mantelpiece, the coffee table. They even hang them on the rearview mirrors of their cars. They keep registries of these events, and watching my grandpa lie for me only made me feel worse. After a while, anytime the bell rang, Grandpa would tell us to be quiet, so we would pretend not to be home. Grandpa insists on keeping the windows wide open no matter the weather. He says it's a precautionary measure in case we get bombed. This way, the air pressure won't shatter the glass. He has PTSD from the war and is haunted by the loss of his two brothers during battle. I asked him once if he ever killed anyone. He remained silent, but the look of despair on his face gave him away. I think you can hear thunder. I'm sorry. The cold marble floors send shivers through my little feet as I bounce restlessly from room to room. To save on gas and electricity, we keep the heat off. During the scorching summer months, we have one small fan that we only turn on when it becomes unbearable. Despite this discomfort, we never complain. He's resourceful, rinsing and reusing paper towels that he hangs to dry on the clothesline on our cluttered balcony. He drinks bottle after bottle of sparkling Lambrusco wine and curses God for taking his wife away too soon, yet he never once lays a hand on us. He is the only source of unconditional love I know. He is home. I'm excited to be in New York with my dad, but part of me aches for my grandpa. He rarely ventured out after my grandma died, and we were his whole world. Instead of enjoying his golden years in peace, he was left to raise two kids all by himself. He'd whip up dinner for us and pick us up from school. We'd hop on the back of his motorino and ride to the garden where he'd pluck grapes off the vine and pop them straight into our mouths. One summer, we even planted a pine tree, watching it sprout and grow taller year after year. He'd probably frame my sketches and hang them on the wall, always making sure to point them out to the few guests we had over. He'd say, this Italian, I'm not even gonna attempt. He'd say with a beaming smile across his face, at night, we'd go in in circles and recite our prayers aloud before he'd sing us the same verse of the only lullaby he knew, until we were fast asleep. "When is Mama and Christopher coming?" I asked my dad in broken English. Without looking up from his beeper, he replied, "Soon, sweetie." I'm not convinced by this answer, but before I can further pry into the matter, he grabs my hand and leads me next door. "I want you to meet someone they just moved into." My dad knocked on the door. I hear loud voices blaring from the TV, but there's no answer. He tries again, and suddenly a woman's piercing shriek echoes through the halls. It's not a normal scream, but something straight out of a horror film. I glance up at my dad, unsure if maybe we should leave, but he seems completely unperturbed. Also, I think you can hear rain. Yeah, that's rain. We hear thumping and bumping until the door cracks open, and a little boy with shaggy, dirty blonde hair steps into the doorway wearing a baggy UFO pants with a strange blue growth on his nose. I try not to stare at it, but suddenly a giant, oversized golden retriever appears from behind him, pushing him to get past. He struggles to keep the dog inside until finally a woman with big bleach blonde hair appears and wrestles the dog back inside. "Oh, hello, you must be Julia. Your dad was telling us about you." "I'm Sharon. So nice to meet you." "Josh, say hi to Julia." Her voice is grating and boisterous, and she speaks with a heavy New York drawl, but she's warm and kind of weird, so I'm instantly intrigued by her. "Hey," Josh says with a mischievous look and a smirk that feels way beyond his years. He's only 4 years old, and normally I wouldn't befriend anyone younger than me, but as I scan the room, taking in all the black leather and marble accents, I notice he has every video game console available on the market. Sharon spends most of her time in her room, either chatting on the phone or watching her favorite shows in bed. I overheard my dad say that she's a Jap, a Jewish American princess, whatever that means. Although she has a law degree, she doesn't practice law. Instead, she floats in and out of the building, making drugstore runs and taking the dog out for short walks. She always brings back something to eat, usually pizza or Happy Meals from McDonald's. The only time she doesn't go out is if she gets a chemical peel. Then she looks like a monster for a whole week. Sharon and Josh split their time between Long Island and the city. When they're in town, I'm usually at their place. When they're on Long Island, I'm usually at their place. I sneak out of my bedroom window and climb onto the scaffolding that surrounds the building. From there, I hop onto their balcony and press my sweaty little palms against the glass until I get the window open. Once inside, I play video games, watch MTV, and indulge in the delicious cans of Chef Boyardee they leave behind. It's way better than the hamburger helper my dad has at our apartment. My favorite part is sneaking into Sharon's closet and modeling all her clothes in the mirror. She has loads of beautiful coats, miniskirts, tube tops, and sexy leather jackets. I put them on, pretending to be her, and talk to myself in the mirror. Going through her drawers, I stumble upon 2 ID cards with 2 very different birthdays, neither of which match the age she told me she was, 25. My mind is blown when I find tons of Polaroids of her when she was younger, backstage at various rock concerts, dressed like a groupie. When Josh and I aren't playing video games, we are usually up to no good. Sometimes it's innocent, like freeing our neighbor's cats by slicing their window screens open or dropping pennies off the rooftop until someone calls the cops on us. Other times we behave like juvenile delinquents as the complaints from the neighbors start to roll in. One lady in particular seems to take issue with our antics. Naturally, we decide to scale the barbed wire fence into her backyard and break into her apartment. We don't usually take anything, but only because there's nothing good to take. We do it for the spend so much time together that we even start fighting like siblings. He hits me in the face with a baseball bat for no reason, just like a real brother. Sometimes Sharon locks her windows, and in that case, I'm stuck at home alone and bored. My dad often locks me in my room for the entire day while he's at work. If I have to use the bathroom, I go in the cat's litter box. We have one TV at home, and my dad reserves it for watching movies, but I figured out how to access basic cable by connecting some wires I found in the hallway. Now when I'm home alone, I watch Jerry Springer and Maury for hours on end. I find all the seedy characters on the show fascinating. They have a mind-numbing element that's irresistible. I feel a sense of calm as I zone out to the chaos. My dad would never let me watch daytime television. He says it rots your brain. If he only knew that all I did during my entire time in Italy was sit in front of my grandpa's old television set with headphones on and a bowl of sugar, using a lighter to make caramel clusters to suck on, he would be furious. I fear my brain has already rotted. Read a book, he says. I've noticed that books are a significant part of his life. He keeps rows and rows of them on every bookshelf, in every closet, and even under his bed. His dad was a writer, and I think he secretly wished he could be one too. He calls himself an intellectual construction worker. In Italy, I never read books. My mom only read comic books. She even named me after the main character in one she was reading while pregnant with me. Prior to my arrival, the doctors told her they had spotted a penis on the sonogram, and she even had a name picked out for me, Alessandro. But surprise, surprise, I came out with a vagina. I can't help but feel like maybe I was already a disappointment. Everything was blue for the first year of my life. My dad treats books like an escape. He gets lost in the pages of the books he reads, and it seems like he always has to be reading a few books at once. One isn't enough to quiet the noise in his head. He takes me to the bookstore often and lets me choose books from the adult section to take home. Soon enough, I'm doing the same thing. I even steal a nightlight from Barnes & Noble so you won't catch me reading at night with the light on anymore. Lately, I've been stealing anything that I can get my hands on. I go to the store in the neighborhood, and they never suspect me. I'm smooth. I never get caught. I steal candy from the dollar store. I steal makeup from the drugstore. I steal clothes out of the laundry room of my building. And sometimes when my dad's wallet is sitting out, I take a small amount of money and stash it in the secret compartment of my music box. It's not much, just $20 here and there, sometimes $50, sometimes $5, but it sure adds up quickly. However, I only know how to count to 99. So I stack, so I stack piles of $99 until I have so many stacks that I need to find a new place to hide them. I know stealing is wrong, but the security that it gives me is priceless. My parents' constant arguing over money has left an indelible mark on my psyche. I vow that I will never be like them when I grow up. I'm going to be rich. My dad works a lot, and when he comes home, he's always tired and in a bad mood. The silver lining is that for the first time in my entire life, I finally have some independence, and I'm starting to form a new identity. I feel like a little lady, the woman of the house. I go to the dollar store and grab a roll of toilet paper when we run out. I get us some cereal and milk since my dad rarely goes food shopping. I'm quickly learning how to care for myself. One morning, my dad comes in to get me dressed for school to find I've already done it. When he bends over to tie my shoelace, I yank my foot away from him. I do it myself. Sometimes when he gets home from work, he's too tired. I'll hop on his handlebars and we'll ride to Central Park where we catch fireflies in mason jars and make wishes as we release them back into the night. In those moments, I feel like I have the best best dad in the world. On other nights, we go to the video store downstairs and rent a movie on VHS. Sometimes he lets me watch the movie with him, but it's for grown-ups. He tells me to go to bed. Even though I'm supposed to be sleeping, I sneak out of my bed and watch the movie crouched down from the corner of the hallway anyways. On the weekends when my dad isn't working, we go to the diner and order our favorite meal, a cream cheese omelet with home fries and butter toast with the strawberry jam. Later, he sits me down at the dining room table and teaches me how to read and write in English. I have a hard time pronouncing the, despite my efforts to press my tongue against my teeth and blow the sound. It sounds like duh. And this makes him frustrated. He loses his patience so easily, and I'm starting to get antsy and bored. I wish I could watch Jerry Springer. At night, I lay in my bed and cry. I muffle the noise with my stuffed animals because I don't want him to wake up. He's especially grumpy. I'm trying my hardest to be a big girl, but I really miss my mom and my brother. I especially miss the comfort of my grandpa. My dad often drops me off at my grandma Margaret's house. He says she's a wannabe wasp, whatever that means. She lives in a studio apartment at an elderly person's home 10 blocks away. She has the silkiest pearly white hair and the same big blue eyes, of which I was the sole inheritor. She lets me give her facials and do her makeup, even though I have no idea what I'm doing. She loves classical music, costume jewelry, her many plants, her senior cats, and the arts. She makes sure I learn the correct way to speak and that I always find my manners. May I, not can I, or and yes, not yeah. She has tons of art supplies and encourages me to be creative. We spend hours in Central Park watercoloring, and when we get home, she hangs my art on the wall just like Grandpa. She takes me to the Metropolitan Museum, the Natural History Museum, the Whitney, the MoMA. As we stroll, she points out the beauty all around us. She brings me to the opera, the theater, the ballet. Although we never have good seats, she always remembers to bring 2 sets of binoculars for us. I never pay attention to the stage because I'm having so much fun spying on the audience members. I love people watching. I wonder who these people are, what their lives are like, and if they actually enjoy themselves. A lot of them seem to be sleeping. Grandma doesn't mind that I'm not paying attention. She has a permanent smile glued to her face the entire time. My Aunt Beth is usually always with us, trailing behind with multiple tote bags. They joke that she's Grandma's shadow. We're attached at the hip, Beth says with a laugh. And since my grandma's in a wheelchair from having had polio as a young girl, this arrangement is very convenient for her. For Beth, I'm not so sure, but she doesn't seem to mind. During arguments with my dad, I hear my mom say mean things about my grandma and Beth, about how they are mentally ill, and that's why he is too. I wonder if that means I'm going to get sick too. One day, Beth casually tells Grandma a story about her therapist told her. Grandma looks up from her paper. Her mood quickly shifts and her eyes narrow toward Beth. Call her up and fire her. I stop what I'm doing and zero in on the situation, which is growing increasingly uncomfortable. Oh, I don't want to fire her, Mom. She's been helping me a lot. I've been able to connect with her. Beth, please fail to move Grandma, who grows stiff in her seat. No. She should not be spending that time that you pay for to talk about herself. Now call her and fire her. Defeated, my Aunt Beth sighs and asks her, well, what do you want me to say? Annoyed, my grandma replies, tell her that she's not the right fit for your particular needs. My aunt nods. Her hands tremble as she reaches for the receiver. She reluctantly punches in her therapist's number. All eyes are on Beth. Even the cat rings a few times before she gets the answering machine. I let out a sigh of relief as she struggles to force the words off her tongue. It was so nice meeting with you, but my mom and I just don't think you're the right fit for me. It's nothing personal. You were great. Thank you so much for your time. She hangs up the receiver and looks as if she's about to cry. Don't worry, sweetheart, Grandma says, her tone suddenly warm and nurturing. We're going to find you someone so much better. I'm too young to fully comprehend what I just witnessed, but it changes my perception of their relationship permanently. Alrighty, so we are about halfway done with chapter 1. I didn't really realize how long these chapters were, and I think that's a really good place to start, so we're gonna stop there. If you enjoyed